from the New York Post, dim majority FCC helping George Soros fast-track takeover of nationwide radio network. This is scary. And here we are once again, more movie-level villain madness. And they constantly want to call you a conspiracy theorist. And obviously it has nothing to do with believing something that may or may not be true at this particular point. But the conspiracy is just reading news that they have not curated with their spin. But my name's Eric. This channel is called Report and Opine. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'm absolutely begging you.
I'm begging you, please. Come on, please.
It would help me a lot and it would cost you nothing. But if you wanted to help me even more and spend a little bit of money, you would buy my book, New York City 2020, Gotham Unglued, on Amazon.com. That link will be in the description. But they say, left-leaning billionaire George Soros is trying to recruit the Democrat-controlled Federal Communications Commission to help fast-track his takeover of the nation's second biggest radio network. Soros, 93, who is more than 10 years older than Bo Biden, and I might make the argument he probably can string together a sentence better than he could, but he pumped $400 million into Audacity in February, a network which reaches 165 million monthly listeners and includes a handful of conservative shows from hosts including Sean Hannity, Dana Lash, Mark Levin, Glenn Beck, and Eric Erickson. But their influence is likely to be muted if the billionaire takes over and imposes his agenda, as has happened with other media acquisitions. So again, these are things that, that you would assume is just like a weird conservative Facebook grandpa screaming about Soros, but it's actually happening. So says the New York Post. A source with knowledge of the deal told the Post, the idea that Soros is buying hundreds of local radio stations right before a national election and will keep broadcasting Sean Hannity and other conservative talk radio hosts on Audacity is not credible. So they're not even hiding it anymore, right? They clearly want this takeover, and they don't care. By the time you start, mutilating children, it doesn't matter. You're not trying to hide it. You don't have a secret agenda anymore. You're quite literally just saying, this is part of the takeover, and we are going to do whatever the hell we want. And if you try to stop us, we're going to call you a criminal, even though quite clearly he is the criminal, because the New York Post also reported that Soros was largely funding a whole bunch of these Palestine protests. And then you have the left-wing media, the MSNBCs of the world, complaining that the New York Post is too right-wing. And I can make the argument that the New York Post is actually pretty good in the grand scheme, right? But the bar is really low. They're not the best. They're not the worst. I'm probably the best, but that's a different story. However, to take control, Soros Fund Management needs help from the FCC, as the money funneled to buying the bankrupt network comes from abroad. Under existing FCC rules, foreign company ownership of U.S. radio stations is not allowed to exceed 25%. But a filing acquired by the Post details Soros asking the commission to make an exception. Oh, yeah. Right? We're not going to follow the rules. We're going to throw the book at you if you even get close to questioning the rules. But we're not going to do it. You should make an exception. I don't know how much longer this can go on, right? It's quite clear that we are already well within the realm of a civil conflict. And then there's, of course, the entire world conflict going on outside. But that's different as well. This is crazy. FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr is raising an alarm that was first set off by Texas Congressman Chip Roy back in April. The FCC should not create a special Soros shortcut. Well, duh. When it comes to a broadcast station acquisition of this size and magnitude, hundreds of radio stations across more than 45 markets, the FCC needs to run its full and normal review process. But of course, George Soros is just going to say, you should do something special for me, which I'm sure is, I don't know, the FCC is largely controlled by Democrats, so why not? He is top Democrat, right? And I have made the argument before that Soros has sort of bypassed the Democratic Party and Bo Biden and Kamala Harris and gone straight to, of course, the radio stations and the weirdo far left protesters in order to make the president move even further left. But of course, it's not the president making any of those moves. It's his handlers who are beholden to Soros, allegedly. The FCC should not be skipping steps or waiving required agency processes. Roy had earlier written the Soros Group would usually petition to get its foreign funding sources vetted by the FCC, but that they are trying to waive that process and put it off until sometime down the road, indicating that those foreign stakeholders will be given special warrants in the meantime, Roy wrote in late April. The FCC did not respond to the Post's request for comment. In the past 2 years, Soros Fund Management, a rep for which said they do not comment on ongoing transactions, has made big moves into American radio. It brokered Univision's $60 million sale in 2022 of 18 mostly conservative Hispanic radio stations, including right-wing powerhouse Radio Mambi. That same year, Soros invested another chunk of cash into the liberal podcast network called Crooked Media, home of Pod Save America. Oh, and I mean, I didn't know that. Of course, Soros has his hands in there. Because it's completely corrupt. You could watch them, Pod Save America and Crooked Media, all over Instagram. None of it makes any sense, but it doesn't have to make sense. And I truly don't know. I don't know if the people operating that podcast network realize what they're actually getting into, or if they realize what they're actually getting into and just taking the money, or if they truly do believe this stuff. It's very, very strange. Oh, I mean, bro. This is quite literally movie villain level stuff. Absolute insanity. Audacity is the nation's second biggest radio network after the iHeart network with 220 stations, including New York's WFAN and 1010 Wins, as well as Los Angeles-based KROQ, according to bankruptcy filings. Sources told the Post Soros' stake is equal to about 40% of the company's senior debt, a massive chunk, which, although not a majority, could yield effective control of the media giant when it emerges from bankruptcy. The timing of the deal, just months before the 2024 presidential election, has raised eyebrows. And this is also right in line with YouTube now saying, we're going to do community fact checks, kind of like Twitter. And they're also going to, there's studies show that YouTube is recommending right-wing content, which we all know is not true, but the timing is really quite strange, only a couple months before the election. And we also saw that they removed the dislike button some years ago after Beau Biden was getting ratioed into oblivion. But I'm sure they're favoring the right wing, and the timing is just so obvious at this point. Like, I wish I could understand what somebody who is not paying attention at all could see, and could you look at this and think that everything's on the level? Like, you can't go back. You can't put toothpaste back in the tube. You can't put the genie back in the bottle and sort of understand how this works, or how somebody with zero knowledge of any of this weird political landscape could just think that this all makes sense. One insider, noting he is a Republican, said he felt it possible Soros was buying the stake to exert influence on public opinion and leading up to the election. Oh. Really? Well, I mean, the Democrats told us that they would never do anything like that. And it was all probably the right-wing Republicans who were trying to lie, cheat, and steal. I mean, the projection is absolutely real. And I feel like I'm, saying ad nauseum that the Democrats are constantly guilty of what they're saying the Republicans are guilty of, but that's just what it is. And that's why I want somebody who believes this to explain to me how that's not happening. This is scary, the source said at the time. In June 2022, the Soros-backed Latino media network bought Mambi, a mainstay of Miami's hardline anti-communist Cuban exile community for decades, and 17 other Spanish-language radio stations, from Televisa, Univision, whatever, in an estimated $60 million deal. And who's this lady? Lourdes Abida hosted a show on the radio network Soros bought in 2022, and she said he neutralized the political content of the station. The newly formed network was run by two former Democratic operatives, Stephanie Valencia and Jess Morales Riquetto, who worked on Barack Obama's and Hillary Clinton's political campaigns. Valencia also worked in the Obama White House. Venezuelan-born former radio Mumbai, I don't know, host Lourdes whatever, that lady, quit the station after she learned of the takeover that summer. Ironically, she now hosts a conservative Spanish-language radio show, and she cannot comment on her current job, but told the Post, the Latin media network, which did not respond to the Post request for comment, essentially neutralized Radio Mambi by shutting down all the political content on the station. They kept the name Radio Mambi, but they made it all soft shows like sports and entertainment. Everything was hardcore anti-communism politics on Radio Mambi before. That's all gone now. So we all know that the media lies, but is the New York Post completely off base here? Are they just feeding us a line of crap like the regular mainstream talking head local media? National media, local media. But again, the Post is not the worst. I'm not saying they're exempt from lying, so maybe this is completely untrue. But would it be that far out of the realm of possibility for George Soros, the movie-level villain, to actually come in months before an election and decide that radio stations all over the place need to start spewing political, weirdo Democrat propaganda?
Never touch a black man's radio, boy!